Item number 9 is a presentation from the Equalization Department. The director, Kristen Sieloff, has a little presentation for us for our new members, so we understand what we're approving on item number 10.
Well, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. I do see some new faces, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kristen Sieloff. I'm the director. I've been here for about a year and a half now. And before I get into the presentation, it's long, it's lengthy. I'm not going to speak to you on every single thing that's in here. I created it quite hastily in the past couple of days because I just kind of realized I was on the agenda today and thought when I presented the equalization study back in December, somebody had asked me to kind of give you guys a little education on what my department does. So I prepared this so that you could maybe read it later. You know, I won't go into great detail because I know you guys have a full agenda. So having said that, a little background on me. I've been a government employee for 25 years. I actually started at the Macomb County Jail in the prisoner information. That was my first government job. From there I went to Shelby Township. I had the pleasure of working with Commissioner Carabelli there. I worked in the clerk's office for about a year and then went into assessing department. I started out as a clerical and then moved my way up and became an appraiser. In August of 2011, I went to Independence Township, which is Clarkston, to be their director of assessing, and I worked there for 4 years before coming here to be the director. Some of the things that pertain to me, my certification is a Michigan Master Assessing Officer. It's a level 4. It's the highest designation that you can have in the state of Michigan, and I am one of approximately 130 people in the state that have this designation. I'm an accredited senior appraiser for with the American Society of Appraisers. My discipline is real property, and I am the first candidate to ever attain the specialty of ad valorem mass appraisal, so that's kind of something unique to me. I am also a Michigan Certified Personal Property Examiner. Some of the affiliations and things that I do, I'm involved in a whole bunch of different assessing and appraising organizations. I've been past president of the Detroit chapter of ASA, Southeastern chapter of Michigan Assessors. I'm the past president of the Macomb Assessors Organization, but I'm still involved with all of those organizations on various committees. I teach for the State Tax Commission, for the Michigan Assessors Association, and other assessor organizations. In fact, I'm holding a Board of Review course next Tuesday. If you don't have anything going on and you want to learn about how to be a Board of Review member, we'll be over at the Macomb Intermediate School District all day. But that's a little bit about me from a work perspective. So when I'm not busy doing all of that, I'm a single mother of a son who is a senior at Lutheran North. And when the weather is really nice, you might see me riding around on my Harley. Okay, enough about me. Let's get into why we're here today. What is equalization? You know, I'm thoroughly enjoying the management training program that the upper management is taking right now, all the directors and managers, and nobody has a clue or has even really heard of equalization. Okay, so we are one of the 3 steps in assessment administration for the state of Michigan. The assessed values are determined at the local level. They are confirmed by the March Board of Review. They then turn their information to me, and I take all the information in and make sure that the values that have been set at the local level are uniform and equitable. And then I bring that presentation to you guys in April, and you affirm the county equalized values. And then once that's done, I send all of that stuff up to Lansing, to the Michigan Department of Treasury and the State Tax Commission, and they check to make sure that everything that I have prepared at the county level is uniform and equitable across the county. Okay, so that's the 3 steps for assessment administration. And if you have any questions, if I'm going too fast, just stop me. Okay, so the purpose of county equalization then is to ensure that assessments determined at the local level are both fair and equitable. And as we saw last year, for some of you who were here, when they're not where they're supposed to be, we have to make an adjustment to those. And that would be occurring at the April session after the conclusion of the March Board of Review. So the way that we do this, the way equalization is performed is we do sales and appraisal studies, okay? And we check the values by class. We do not, and I need to emphasize that, we do not determine individual assessments, okay? We have nothing to do with that end of thing. We study classes of property. County equalization is mandated by Section 211-34 of the Michigan General Property Tax Act, and that is where you all are actually charged with the duty of equalization at the county level. So in April, I bring all that stuff to you, and you convene and you affirm the values that are determined and affirmed at the March Board of Review. It also states in 211-34 that you are supposed to examine the assessments and the assessment rolls of all the cities and townships. That's a big job, and so you guys don't actually have to do that because we are also a part of 211-34, the establishment of the department and a director to run that department, and it's me. So some of the things that we do are on this responsibilities page, and I apologize, I have a cold, so I'm very dry. We do the county equalization studies for next year, starting bases. We do a tentative equalization ratios and estimated SCV multipliers, which is coming up. Those will be posted next Friday in the Macomb Daily. We do the county equalization report in April, which is like a follow-up to what the local units are doing after the Board of Review. I am required, the department is required to report the personal property values on a summary report. Equalization director calculates the millage reduction fraction calculations for all of the taxing authorities in the county. And then the millage request reports, which come to you for any taxes that will be levied in the county, we have a little hand in that too. So just to give you an idea of what's involved, when we do a sales study, we analyze the good sales. We don't analyze, the dollar sales. We only look at the good sales, good arm's length transactions that are defined by the State Tax Commission. And so what we do is we take a look at the sale price, and we look at where it's assessed to determine if that assessment is reflective of 50% of that sale price. And we're under the assumption that the sale price is reflecting true cash value, okay? So we do that for a 2-year sales study period. In an increasing market, it's a 2-year study period. When the values are decreasing, it reverts back to just a 1-year study.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Does that includes bank sales and foreclosure sales?
Bank sales and foreclosure sales are looked at, but the way that that they are included in our study, they have to meet certain criteria that are specified by the State Tax Commission. They have to be marketed properly like any other property would be. They have to meet certain criteria in order to be considered. But if it meets all the criteria set by the State Tax Commission, yes, it gets included in those.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So we use the sales, comparing it to the assessment to develop a ratio. And so it's the assessment divided by the sale price equals the ratio. When we're doing these studies, we use an aggregate value, so it's the total assessed values divided by the total sale prices, so that the outliers, don't have a heavy indication or have a big effect on the values as they're changing. And we do the same thing with our appraisal studies as well. I apologize for the quality of this. I picked the smallest sales study that we had, and it is still very difficult to read. But this form here is for, I believe it's for Ray Township. And I have to do this for every period in the sales study. So it's a 2-year period, but each year is broken into 2 6-month brackets. So we analyze all the sales, and as you'll see on here, the sales that are in black type are the ones that we get from the clerk's office. The ones that are in red type are the ones that the local units add to that list from like property transfer affidavits. We don't get those at our level. But then we compare the assessments, like I said, the assessments to the sale prices, and we use the aggregate totals. And then that ratio in red at the bottom is what's determined. Now hold on to that number, because I think it's 4640, right? 46.40%? Okay, so once this is done for every community, for every sales period, and I do this for residential, I do look at commercial industrial sales, but we typically don't have enough to study. We have to meet certain study percentages. I then calculate on this State Tax Commission form or Michigan Department of Treasury form the breakdowns of what the analysis is showing. And the red arrow indicates the study period that we were just looking at. So you'll see that the 46.40% is the ratio that's way over on the side. There were 41 sales in that sales study period. So when you calculate the total ratio for the residential property for Ray Township, there's specific formulas on how you adjust the first session, the second period, and the third period. The fourth period is straight. We don't do any kind of adjustment modifier calculations for that. But the end unit, or the end ratio in there was 48.08, okay? So then, hold on to that number as well, because you're going to see that in a minute. We do appraisals. And the appraisals we do basically primarily on commercial and industrial property. There is one residential, it's Memphis. We don't really get enough sales. We don't get enough, stupid things, I can't see that and I can see you. The residential sales in Memphis are not enough. So we have to do an appraisal study. When we're deciding how we're going to calculate the ratio, we have to pick either a sales study or appraisal. We can't do both. And so Memphis is the only one that we have to do an appraisal study because we just don't have a sufficient sample size. Okay, so with the appraisal, it's kind of the same thing, only the true cash values are determined by my appraisers in my department. So they go out, they perform appraisals just like they do at the local level, but ours is completely independent of what they do. We develop our own ECFs, which are factors to adjust costs up and down. We do our own land values. We do all of our own independently, and we come up with a true cash value, and then we look at what the local unit assessment is in comparison to ours.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. When you have to go to Memphis,
Commissioner Leonetti.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize for my procedural learning here. When you go out to Memphis and you appraise, that's done from your department. Are those employees of your department, or do you contract out to independent appraisers?
No, we have 4 appraisers on staff in the department.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mm-hmm. So we're basically determining the sale price, the true cash value, by doing an appraisal. And we have to use a cost manual that the State Tax Commission gives us. The entire state uses that. It's adjusted to the different counties, and then the local units will adjust it to their unit. What's going on in Lenox Township is not necessarily what's going on in East Point. So they adjust it further with their own individual market areas. But again, with the appraisals, we do the aggregate totals at the bottom. So this is the industrial for Ray Township. This is their appraisal study. And again, it's the total assessed values from Ray. And that's divided into the true cash values that were determined by my department staff, and we get a ratio, and I believe that ratio is 47. Okay, so now, hold on to that number, because this form should kind of look familiar to those of you who were in here back in December. This is the 4018, and it's a report of how we determined their ratio for each unit. So as you can see on there, the residential amounts carried over, the 48.08 circled on the bottom, and the arrow indicates that we used a sales study because we have to identify that. And then the one above it is the industrial appraisal study that you just saw in the previous slide. Okay, so now you guys kind of have an idea of where that came from. And I remember it might have been you at the, I know it was somebody over on this side of the room that asked me to kind of explain where this stuff came from. The stuff I brought before you in December, that's how we got there. Okay? Let's see. So I am very proud of my department. You know, we're the third largest county. I have 10 employees, and they really work hard. And so I wanted you to see this, because nobody ever sees this part. But this is a summary of the real property and what my department staff actually accomplished. On an annual basis, the 4 appraisers do appraisals of approximately 500 properties. That's just the appraisal studies. That's just the commercial and the industrial stuff and residential in Memphis. That doesn't include going out and verifying the sales, which is one of the parts of the sales study. We have to make sure that the sale is a good representative sale. So they do that many appraisals plus field visit and verify the sales. So then when you take a look at the area on the end there for the residential, there are approximately 11,200 good sales throughout this community that are included in the second half of the sales study period. And so they go out and they do a sampling of those. They don't do them all, but they do check and verify as many of them as possible. My 3 clerical enter all of those. So they're busy. That's a lot of sales. And that's only the ones on this sheet are the ones that are used. That's not how many are actually entered in there, because there are some that we don't end up using. So my staff, they get a lot of stuff done. Now I do have my personal property manager is in the audience today. This is what she accomplishes. Personal property is done a little bit differently than real property because you're basically auditing books, okay? So what happens is we ask the local units to turn in and give us copies of the personal property statements as they're filed at the local level, and those are turned in February 20th is the deadline. So she gets copies of those and she reviews those to check them for the accuracy at the local level. But then she also performs audits where she's actually going out to these businesses, looking at their books, checking to see when you put it into the schedules that we have to use, if the assessment at the local level is coming in at where their books are indicating they are. So for personal, we do a combined study of audits and then statement reviews. But she also worked hard, and she was replacing somebody that had been here for a long time, so this was her first run at it, and she hit the mark. So I was very pleased with how the personal property studies went. Okay? So now, some of you were here last year, some of you weren't. When I came before you at budgets, I talked about how I was, my goal was to make a combined countywide database for the first time ever. Well, you are looking at on this slide the very first report out of the first countywide balanced database. And what these are is these are the tentative equalization ratios and the estimated multipliers for each community, for each class of property. And what that means is this ratio, like let's pick one on there, for the city of Centerline, they have a ratio of 48.89 for their commercial class. So you take the 50, you take 50 and you divide it by the 48.89, and it gives you a factor of 1.02270. So what that really means, just drop the factor, just drop the 1 and the 0.0. And what that means is Centerline has to increase their commercial class, according to our appraisals, our appraisal study, by 2.27%. Okay? And we calculate that for every class of property, all the classes in real and personal. So that's a culmination of just the study part. So the study that I bring to you guys in December, once you approve those numbers, then these ratios are given to the local units and the Secretary of the Board of Review. Okay?
Oh, okay, can I get a motion to receive and file, first of all, by Carabelli, seconded by Drollet? And then I'll ask, are there any questions? I don't see any on here right now. At this point, we asked Kristen to come over and explain a little bit, because this was actually explained in 2016, and it never got moved to the full board. It was approved. So that's like the whole idea of this, because we're actually going to be approving on item agenda number 10, this from last year's approval from finance. So she gave a little explanation. I feel like I'm ready to take that test now to become an appraiser. And seeing no questions on it, I'd like to take a vote. All that would like to, oh, there we go. Vote on your iPad, please. To receive and file, correct. We'll get there. Great. That passes 13-0. Kristen, thank you very much for coming out and reporting to us. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more questions from this little brief introduction to some of our commissioners, and they'll probably call you directly on something like that. So thank you.
And I was going to say, I'm down on the 6th floor, and I have a staff that would love to, answer any questions, show you what we do. I'm always there. So
Great.
come on down and visit.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.